really two big things I want to jump into or dive into today. And they big conversations, among the Liverpool fans at the moment. And that is number one, how Liverpool can turn things around immediately. I think that's very needed. And in order for us to understand that, we need to look at what the current landscape looks like, what's been happening at Liverpool Football Club. And then the second thing we'll be diving into is what can we actually expect from the January transfer window, or basically what I would like to see happen in this January transfer window. And that would be the two topics that we'll be diving into today. And yeah, man. So, whether you're watching this live or catching it in replay, I appreciate you being here. Drop your thoughts in the chat. That's always important. This is a community. So it's not basically just me speaking. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let's engage on that. Let's share. I hold an opinion. Now, my opinion could be very, very wrong. And so that's why yours is equally valued, and it brings as much weight to the table. There's oftentimes, I have a video where I share my thoughts and my insights, and someone would come along in the comments and would give some fantastic input that's perhaps in opposition to what I'm saying, but their take is so refreshing, and it makes me go, that's a good point that I didn't see. And I think it helps all of us grow in understanding, and it grows us as a community so that we can have a better understanding of our beloved football club and, of course, the beloved game. So please drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to keep this a proper football conversation and not really just a monologue. So yeah, your insights and inputs are extremely valuable, and it is valued over here. So let's jump into the first topic, and that is how Liverpool can turn things around at the moment. Now, let's start with setting the landscape with where Liverpool are, and I think a lot of what we have seen now in the current moment started at the end of last season. And it was a brilliant season for Liverpool. They won the Premier League, were able to lift that trophy, made us all very proud, and we were celebrating. And in light of those celebrations, I think what went under the radar for a lot of people, one of them being myself, is the fact that Liverpool had started showing signs of fatigue and a bit of a slump closer to the end of the season. Now, I think we all gave them a pass simply because with 4 games left in the season, Liverpool had already won the Premier League. It was only a matter of time before they would actually lift the Premier League Cup. And so we gave them a pass on those bad performances where they looked a little bit tired. They looked like they were going through a slump. It looked like there was a little bit of difficulty in communication on the field and perhaps even off the field. Not sure. We saw that it started looking like a bit of trouble started creeping into the midfield, and up front, Liverpool was surely not firing on all cylinders as they have throughout the season. And I know a lot of us made some excuses, no, but they've played hard, they've worked hard, job done. That's all we needed, job done. We've got number 20 in the bag, so we're not going to go on about them not performing at that same level. And I think one of the reasons why it was okay is because while teams like Arsenal and Manchester City had their slump earlier or more to the middle of the season, Liverpool had its slump at the end of the season when things couldn't really change anymore. And we were okay with that then, saying, look, they've played hard when everyone else was slow, shallow, and going through a slump. Liverpool were looking good. The players were firing on all cylinders, and job well done. So we kind of let that one go under the radar. But now in hindsight, when we look back, we kind of find that it does appear that those were early signs that perhaps some cracks are showing. that perhaps something isn't going right. And I don't know what it is, but perhaps, and humor me with this, perhaps there was a moment of cracks showing because players have noted that time is running out for a number of the players in the dressing room. They knew one or two had said to them, perhaps in confidence, guys, I'm not going to be here next season. I'm out the door. I'm leaving. I've had it. We've won number 20. I've achieved what I wanted to now. So this is it from me. Adios. And I think that that brought some sort of mental shift to the dressing room. Now, whether it was only an individual player or whether it was a few players, whether it was the management side saying, guys, we are looking at acquiring a number of targets in the new window. And this team, who's just won the Premier League, who's just gone through blood, sweat, and tears to bring us number 20, will not be the same season. Some of you will not be going on to the next season. Well, whatever it is, if it was that or if it was something else, it definitely would have brought about a mental shift for the lads in the dressing room. Now, I want to touch on one of those players, and that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I think what we saw happen in that moment is a little bit of a frustrating moments, I think, for the club, for the rest of the team, and definitely for the fans. And I think it brought to loggerheads the two sides over here, the fan base and the players and the club. And what I think we had seen is a player that ran down his contract, a player that we all trusted because he's a local lad, run down his contract and bring it right down to the very last day and then let know I'm leaving. And so there wasn't a bittersweet moment of Trent's departure. I think there was a bitter moment for a number of fans. Fans didn't like it when Trent left. Of course, it was a very emotional moment for him, and I think a very emotional moment for the rest of the team, knowing good and well he is a local lad from Liverpool, and he's out the door. And the fans who support each and every player, game in, game out, through the victories, through the trials and the difficulties, those same fans were fed up. And they said, enough already, and pointed him in the direction of the door. Now, this reminds me of a couple of players, and I think it is in light of that that Liverpool fans have responded the way that they have. And I think Liverpool fans responded to Trent the way that they have because they've seen this happen in the past. If you think of a Phil Coutinho who refused to play, citing a back injury, and then it was this injury, and then it was that injury, and was actually just running down his contract and waiting for the transfer window to pop up and then put in the transfer request to leave Liverpool as quickly as he could to go to Barcelona. I don't think that sat well with a lot of the Liverpool fans. And even Jurgen Klopp said to Coutinho at the time, if you stay, they'll be building statues in your name. The famous quote. But if you leave, it's not greener on the other side. The pastures surely aren't greener. And lo and behold, he leaves, and the pastures were not greener on the other side. And I think it's very telling that in that moment, Liverpool fans, even though they didn't say it, were kind of like, we told you so. We told you, do not stab us in the back for some childhood dream that you may have had as a younger lad. But now that you are older, understanding that you are contractually bound, this is a professional career, and we have looked after you and developed you into the type of player that that you've become. And we've shown you nothing but love and support when you were here. Even when you told us You had a back injury. We had your back because our mantra is you'll never walk alone. We walked alongside you. Now to find out you did all of that, deceiving all of us and stabbing us in the back, kind of made us go, so we were walking with you because, you'll never walk alone, but you never walked with us. You weren't there. And so Liverpool fans, I think, had this mentality that we'll never allow that to happen. Because not only did we see it happen with Phil Coutinho, I think back to the Michael Owen days when he was there, another local lad, and we said, we've got your back. Through the injuries, brilliant player, very injury prone. Through the injuries, where were Liverpool fans? Right there in Owen's corner saying, we've got your back. You'll never walk alone. And I think we showed him immense support. And when time came and Owen kind of said, guys, that's it. This is a wrap. Sorry. And said, this is a wrap. And decided it's time to go. We wished him well. Said, okay, cool, dude. We've been supporting you. We've been here. And off you go. And then later, through a number of clubs making the turn in Europe, ends up at a Manchester United. All of a sudden, the tables are turned and kind of feel that, there goes our trust. That was a local lad. But we've had his back and we showed support. And off goes Owen, ends up at Manchester United and becomes a pundit. And what's very interesting is when he becomes a pundit, whenever he's speaking and he's got to deliver commentary on Liverpool, Owen refers to the club as they and them and, his preferred pronouns for the club. And when he speaks about Manchester United and as a pundit, not as a player, he's referring to them as us and we. And once again, Liverpool fans are left to just take that. And we've been backstabbed and we've kind of just got to let it slide now because, we've at one point had to say goodbye to him. Now, I say all of that to say this. Liverpool fans have been patient when a player leaves to a different club who eventually will become opposition. They leave off to Real Madrid or to the rest of Europe, or they eventually end up at a Manchester United. Phil Coutinho leaves, and now we see Trent Alexander-Arnold leave. And Liverpool fans have to sit there and take that. But not only do Liverpool fans have to live through these moments over and over again, the teammates have to. The teammates have to now live through understanding that here's a player that ran down his contract, that the club depended on, that the rest of them depended on, that the fans depend on, ran down his contract, said, I've won it all. Thank you. I'm out of here. Peace. My boyhood dream awaits. I think that creates a mental shift for the rest of the team. That somebody you had built that camaraderie with has now left the team, but has left a bitter taste in the mouth of the very fans who you are playing in front of. But not just that. I think in that dressing room, there's a lot of pain that we haven't addressed yet. And I'm only speaking about transfers so far. When fans were also coming up and showing players who's also left. I know Darwin Núñez was one. I can't remember who the other player was. I don't think it was Luis Diaz. I can't remember who the other one was. And they were showing the pictures of, first of all, of Florian Wirtz and Kerkez, Milos Kerkez, and saying what Liverpool's got. And then, what's left Liverpool. And it was a picture of Núñez and the other player. Mo Salah was actually the one that spoke up and said, You can show support for the new players without disrespecting the legends. And I think it speaks of what Mohamed Salah values the players as who have left. And I think it's left a bit of a void in the dressing room. I think a lot of these players are struggling to adjust with the number of players who had, together with them, achieved number 20 for Liverpool. A number of them leaving. And that, I think, broke a lot of the camaraderie in the dressing room. I also think that it broke a lot of the spirit that the team had, and also knowing that it didn't sit well with fans. And you've now still got to play in front of those fans, but these fans kind of didn't like the guys that you really liked and was your support and network, and you think of them as legends. And I think it kind of broke the spirit of what the team was. Now, that's just my observations and opinion. But couple that with the fact that we've also lost Diogo Jota in the way that we have. He's not a player that said, guys, I'm out of here. Guys, I've had enough of this club and I'm going to be making my way to another club that I'm going to be calling home. It's also not a player who the fans and the supporters had any qualms with. In actual fact, he was loved. He's a fantastic footballer, fantastic guy, made everyone proud, got married, brilliant. And then tragedy strikes. And we lose Diogo Jota in the most heartbreaking way. And I think what we don't often speak enough about is the fact that we lost Diogo Jota while he was on his way back to Liverpool. Holiday period was just about ending. All of the players are starting to come back. And tragedy strikes while he's on his way back to Liverpool. Never makes it back. And those players who have just lost a lot of the teammates who had helped them win number 20 now have to also deal with the fact that there's a player that they most likely said in text messages, in phone calls, or maybe at the end of the previous season, hey, see you when you get back. And they just won't ever see him again. Excuse me. And there's a real deep emotional and mental side of the team that exposes itself. Now, I'm sure that they've had some type of counseling for the team. I'm sure they've had conversations about this. But how much is enough? Can one ever really get over grief within a matter of weeks and get on with work? And yes, even for the fans, I think that moment was very real. It was a very deep moment. It was a cutting moment. The reality slaps you across the face. But I also want to be cognizant of the fact that we live in a time and age where these quick bits of dopamine hits really gets us. We want something quick and then we want to get it over and done with. We must get over it now and we must move on. And we forget the current reality for a lot of people who deal with a lot of things, and mental fatigue and vulnerability and emotions are a very, very real thing. And it does impact performance. Whether it's in the workplace or whether it's on the football field, it does. And if we think about it, it's only been 4 months since the passing of Diogo Jota. And yes, we are, as supporters, we are out there at Anfield. We sing on the 20th minute. We sing for Diogo Jota. We clap for Diogo Jota. And we bring to remembrance Diogo Jota. But I think as quickly as that moment comes, it goes, because in the 30th moment, if someone on that field makes a mistake, we are out there shouting and cussing and thinking, can this guy not think? Why is he playing so badly? Why is he playing so poorly? And we are throwing our toys out the cot. And maybe, just maybe, the team hasn't adequately dealt with the amount of loss, and especially the tragic loss of Diogo Jota, that it had suffered in the last transfer market. And maybe it's time we allow the players to deal with these type of things, with grief, with the emotional position that they are in. I don't know if it's adequately been addressed. I actually do not know. Maybe you have more insights. Let me know in the comments of this video if you perhaps have better insights. But I don't know if that is just where the players are at with the club, because something like this will most likely need ongoing counseling on a weekly basis for at least 6 months before one can become high functioning again. It's not easy. It is definitely not easy. And I think there has been mental impact. Now, if we look at just a moment when a little bit of it was addressed and the impact and implication that it had. Think about this. After the Villa game, right, they all sit down for a talk, and it's the manager and the coaching staff addressing the team. And once they've had their initial address, and this is after the Villa game, it's right before the Real Madrid game, and Liverpool has just come off a very high. They've just won the game. This is now at the Access Centre. It's at the end of training on a particular day. And at the end of that talk, the management team and the coaching staff leave. Virgil says to the team, remain seated. It's time we have a round table. And they have this conversation. And players are allowed to be as open and as honest around that table. And you can be brutal, you can be honest, but you need to open up. And this is what he allows them to do. And they go round table and they have a deep, fantastic conversation. And they get to speak about whatever it is that is on their heart in that moment. And they're allowed to be vulnerable in front of the other players, but they're also allowed to be brutally honest in front of those other players. And after that, after they've been brutally honest, and I don't know what the next step was, but after that, they get up and they get on with things. They go through training that week. They face Real Madrid in the Champions League, and they absolutely demolish Real Madrid, and they play the type of football, and we'll get into this into just a second. They play the type of football that the Premier League is seeing this season against a European club that also does not have the answers to the style of play that the Premier League team has. And that is that Real Madrid dominates possession in that game. 61% of the ball Real Madrid has. Liverpool has 39% of the ball possession, but it's what they do. It's the quality of the possession that they have with that ball. And in that 39% of having the ball, Liverpool were dangerous, they were clinical, they were moving that ball forward, passes were accurate, and they were getting the ball into the dangerous areas, and they were attacking the goal of Real Madrid. For that 61% of the time Real Madrid had that ball, they had to shield that ball, they had to defend that ball, and they had to play in their own half. So having the ball and having ball possession is no longer a metric by which one can say we've been dominating a game. No, Liverpool, less possession, and they were absolutely dominant. They dominated possession. They dominated having the ball in their possession versus what Madrid did when having the ball in their possession. And that is the importance of having conversations like that, because when they had that conversation, they came out with that mentality, and they started playing a dominant style of football. And I think we all appreciated that. But it also shows us the value of having these real psychological conversations, these emotional conversations, and allowing players to deal with where they are at in the current moment. And perhaps the Liverpool squad needs a lot more of that. They need a lot more of the openness. They need a lot more of the transparency. And I think they need to be very, very real. Now, besides the emotional side and the psychological side and the mentality, I often hammer on this on Tactical Tuesdays, is that there's three things Liverpool need to focus on. And the three things that they need to focus on is the tactics, number one. The second thing is mentality. And the third thing is leadership. But I want to take another angle today, and we said we're going to be speaking about how Liverpool can fix their current situation. And, I've really written it down like this. Have a look at what the actual problems are with Liverpool at the moment, and we've got to be honest about what's hurting Liverpool at the moment. And it's a new style of play in the Premier League, and so those long balls over the top, even Slots admitted it himself. Teams have figured out that Liverpool struggle with those second balls and direct play. So that's definitely a red flag Liverpool needs to address. The second one is set pieces. Now, this isn't something new. This has been coming on for, I think, the last 4 years. Under Jurgen Klopp already, we saw Liverpool season after season struggle with set pieces, which is a little bit of a concern for me, thinking that we've got two fantastic, tall, strong powerhouses, at centre back position. And, we're conceding way too many easy goals, from corners and from set pieces and free kicks. It should not be happening. So that's the second red flag. It's set pieces. The third thing is that midfield imbalance this season. When Wirtz is pressing high and when he pushes high, we get exposed in transition. There's just this massive gap. What's happening with that? Last season in that pivot, it looked fantastic. Ryan Gravenberg looked like Superman last season. I could swear when he was running on the field one day, I could see his cape just flapping in the wind, man. Flapping. Cape Superman. Made McAllister look even sharper. He was sharp last season. Gravenberg made him look even sharper. Szoboszlai on fire, man. And Gravenberg did that. And the three of them were a dominant force in that midfield and that pivot, double pivot. Chef's kiss. Some of the best football that we've seen. This season, it's missing. And I think of a player like Florian Wirtz. We've brought him in because his strong point is operating from the midfield right into the opposition's box, drifting in toward the right-hand side as he's carrying the ball and the play forward. That's what we see his strength is. And this season, we've brought him in because that's the way he plays. That's what we saw and what we loved about Florian Wirtz. And we said, oh, we love that. We want him to come and do that at Liverpool. And then do we play him in that position? Hell no. We put him on the wing, use him as a winger. And all of a sudden, he's not able to do the very thing that we've bought him in for, and the thing that we said, that's the skill we need. Now, he can't use the skill now because we've got something different we're doing. He's been played out of position, doesn't have the freedom to roam as he does. And all of a sudden, he's now getting in the way of the pivot. The pivot doesn't look as strong. McAllister hasn't been firing on all cylinders in every game. Sometimes when he's allowed to do what he did last season, he looks brilliant. Ryan Gravenberg quietly now is commanding that midfield. Dominic Szoboszlai has to do everything in the club now. But I think we need to get that midfield balance right. If he pushes up, we need someone to fill in that gap that's left there. We're being exposed in the transition. The fourth thing is what I'd like to call the Salah dilemma. And some analysis are questioning, whether whether we should rotate him more. And it's a big call, and it's dividing opinions. But here's something that I've been thinking about, and we have to be honest about this. I was one of them. And we put a lot of pressure on Liverpool. Let Mohamed Salah sign. Why isn't he signing? Let that man sign a contract. Give him the contract. Let him sign. Just put the numbers down and let him sign. Come on, what's wrong with you, Liverpool? Let the man sign. And we were concerned that Liverpool is leaving this for too late, and they can't lock this contract down. We aren't privy to know what's in that contract. That's the other side. We don't know what that contract says. Now everyone's saying, "Oh, what's wrong with Slot? Why isn't he, rotating Salah? No one is bigger than the club." What does his contract say? Is Slot allowed to drop him? Is that perhaps one of the points that he's negotiated on? Well, that's something we need to take into consideration, something we need to think about. I'm not saying it is, but it could very well be. And there I was, one of those people shouting, let the man sign. Doesn't matter what's in the contract. Let him sign it and keep him at the club. Well, he's at the club. They've made him sign the contract. They kept him. Doesn't matter what's in the club. Maybe that's one of the things. Salah gets to dictate when he gets dropped. What if he's saying, I don't want to sit this one out. I want to play. It's a little bit of a difficult one. So some of the things that, it has been difficult. The Salah dilemma, definitely one of them. So what are the solutions then? If we've got those things. And let's just recap quickly what the four things are that are the red flags for Liverpool this season. It's the long ball over the top that Liverpool struggles with this season. The second one is set pieces that Liverpool has been struggling with for the last 4 seasons, despite having VVD and Konate in there. The midfield imbalance is another problem. And then Salah, the Salah dilemma that we have over there. Can we rotate him? Can we not rotate him? What does his contract say? Well, what is then the solution? So what do we do about this? Well, for me, first of all, we need to fix the basics. When it's the little ones, yay high, and you're taking them through a training routine and you're teaching them how to play football. You teach them the basics. The ball comes from an aerial position. What should you do? Well, you teach them head, chest, knee, foot. That's it. You play the ball on the ground because then you've got more control instead of just kicking the ball and lobbing the ball. And we often see that so many times. Very little control because everyone seems to be in a panic and we need to rush the ball forward. I think Liverpool need to get back to the basics, learn to control the ball, anticipate the runs, look at where your players are. And another thing we need to do in getting the basics right is that set piece organization needs to be worked on and the awareness on the second ball. The second thing Liverpool needs to get right is they need to adjust the midfield, So give Wirtz license to create, but anchor him with a more disciplined partner. So that pivot worked last year. That double pivot worked very well. We had Gravenberg, and then beyond him, we had another 2 midfielders. And I think this time, allow Wirtz to do what we bought him for. Let him do what we saw his talents allows him to do. Give him that space from the midfield to the box and allow him to drift into the right, because that was his strongest point. That is where he's been racking up all of his running miles, where he's been most dangerous and most threatening. He's not allowed to do that at Liverpool this season, being used as a winger in a very different capacity, and that's why you're not unlocking him or getting the best. Get that right. Adjust the midfield to play to the strength of the player who you've bought for a specific reason. Gravenberg, Szoboszlai, McAllister, these guys are sharp enough to be able to adjust and adapt to that. So adjust the midfield. Give Wirtz the license to create and anchor him with a strong player. Put McAllister over there or something. The third thing is the rotation. Slot has the depth. He should be using that, and he should be using it smartly. Just think about this. No one should be untouchable. And yes, we don't know what's in Mohamed Salah's contract, whether he's droppable or not. We don't. But with some of the other players that can be rotated, rotate them smartly. Vert's being used as a winger, and in that position, he plays the exact game that Cody Gakpo plays. And so when you are making changes and you take Verts off and you bring Gakpo on, or if Gakpo starts, you take Gakpo off and you bring Verts on, and they play exactly the same, you are not changing anything on the field. You're not changing the formation. You're not changing the pace of the game. You're not changing the strategy. The tactic is exactly the same. We saw it against Manchester City. Gakpo came on, didn't change a thing. Liverpool still weren't threatening. Still allowing City to take control and dominance of the game. We have to use rotation smarter. And players like Chiesa, if you're not going to use him in the squad, don't include him in the squad. And perhaps it's time for Chiesa to start looking for a club who will appreciate him more. But if it is not going to be used, then don't make him take up place on the bench or in your squad. Find a different player and put that player in the squad. Or if Rio Ingemoa is not ready yet for this high level of football, allow him to go and play in the reserves, allow him to go and play under 21. The under 21s had a fantastic derby against Everton, and they were on fire over there. And he should be allowed to be playing with his peers, or let him play in the under 18s where he actually belongs. But one thing that the Liverpool management needs to stop doing is to stop selecting players, putting them in the squad, and never ever rotating the team on the field, nor are they rotating that bench and bringing in proper talents. At right back, we've had so many struggles, even though Liverpool have two right backs in reserve. Two. One of them played in the under 21 derby and scored. We saw him come on against Real Madrid. Looked absolutely dangerous. And yet and still, in the early parts of this season, we had Dominic Szoboszlai playing at the back. This is unacceptable. But the thing that we need to fix there is we need to get the rotation right. That's basically what I wanted to say with that one. But we also need to lean into the positives. And this is the fourth thing that I think we need to do to get this right. That 5-1 Champions League win over Frankfurt, and couple that with a strong win over Villa, a strong win over Real Madrid, and we need to capitalize on those type of things. And one of the things Liverpool had really prided itself in the past, I don't see it much this season. I don't feel it this season. But in the past, there was this big sense of relationship between the club and the fans. If Liverpool were achieving and doing well, fan voices were heard. They would ask for recordings from all of the various supporters around the world, and they would showcase that, and it would be shown on LFC TV, and it would be shown on social media, and it was fantastic. Fans were allowed to give insights and opinions, and when Liverpool weren't performing well in the past, they would ask fans for what their take is, what is their opinion, share with us things and insights that you as a fan have had, or they'd invite fans over, come and speak to us, or they'd have some type of fan engagement. And this season, it kind of just feels lacking. I don't feel that. I don't feel that Liverpool is leaning into its support network, and we aren't celebrating the little wins. If there's something like a clean sheet, are we celebrating that? Are we making a big noise about the small wins? Are we awarding fans who are there week in, week out, 6 losses on the trot, and there are still fans who come in with belief? Are we doing that? And I don't think we are leaning into the successes. One thing that's very telling is there's a group of Liverpool fans in the UK, and one guy said his dad or his granddad had been supporting Liverpool all of his life. The old man's never been to Anfield, and his grandson took him, fantastic, to go and watch a match. And sadly, it was that match against Manchester City. No, I speak under correction. It wasn't the City game. That was an away one. It was the last home game that Liverpool lost. And there's a group of other supporters who said, you know what, for the mere fact that you took your grandpa to go and watch that game, we respect you for that. And we love the fact that this old man got to see a game, but we feel bad that that is the game that he had to go and watch. How dare the players put up that performance, and there's someone like that who supported this club since like the 1950s. Old man is obviously devastated and gutted to go and watch that on the cop end. And that group of Liverpool fans got together, got some money in a kitty, and they refunded that guy his ticket. And he said, here's the refund. We'll refund you the ticket. Take your granddad and go and watch a different game. And I think hats off to those Liverpool fans, because they are keeping the community alive and they are leaning into the culture that Liverpool used to have. And so when we look at how Liverpool is going to be able to change and swing these things around, we're going to have to fix the back to basics, get back to that. We're going to have to adjust the midfield. We're going to have to get the rotation, the squad rotation on and off the field right. And then we're going to have to lean into the positives. And those are just the things that Liverpool always used to do. And I think we've moved away from that a little bit. We need to get back to that. And so there is another thing I want to just briefly touch on, and that is what Jamie Carragher said. And very, very interesting take. He's another voice in the conversation that one has to bring in, simply because he's a legend of Liverpool, and he's been very critical of Liverpool lately. And I think his take deserves a serious unpacking. So just looking at what he said, Carragher argues that Liverpool have fallen behind in the Premier League, not just on results, but in the way they are playing. And he says that the league is shifting, more physical, it's more set-piece focused, more direct play, and that Liverpool summer spending spree didn't align with that. And more bluntly, he's gone as far as saying Liverpool aren't playing football, they're playing basketball. I wouldn't go that far, but I do get a sense that Carragher is saying that Liverpool kind of went after the brand players and purchased players for where they were at in the current moment. Last season, looking at how they played last season, and they kind of went and looked for like players. And that's why we end up with Verts being played in the same position as Gakpo. Neither of them are Luis Diaz, but they kind of have to fill that position simply because that's kind of where we had someone playing in that position. Carragher has come in and he's got to kind of be the new Robertson. He's got to just kind of do the same thing. Frimpong's been brought in. He's got to be the new Trent Alexander-Arnold. And we've kind of brought in players to play the very game that we've played last season. Meanwhile, the other teams seem to have adjusted the way they play. And I mentioned this earlier. When Liverpool played Real Madrid, they played exactly the way the Premier League teams are playing now against Liverpool, where they go for the long ball over the top. And what they do is they'll allow the opposition to have the ball. Go on, have the ball, do as much with the ball as you wish, which is kind of what Liverpool did last season. Held onto the ball, kicked it around, so they dominated in possession. They kept the ball, and they slowly then would change the tempo and move up the pitch with the ball. And even when Jurgen Klopp was there with the Gegen press, string together just 100 different passes, holding the ball all the time. So they dominate in possession, they dominate in passing, and then they would try and just bunch in the opposition into where they were. This season, there seems to be a shift, and we saw it in a couple of matches this season. Think of, I think of the Bournemouth game. I think of the City game, where they've said to Liverpool, and the Real Madrid game that Liverpool played, they say to the opposition, it's fine, keep the ball. In that game, Real Madrid had 61% of the ball possession. Liverpool had 39%. Now, why is this significant? It's because the quality of the ball possession is vastly different. When Liverpool had that 39% of ball position, they were clinical, they were dangerous, the passing was accurate, the movement was quick, a lot of the passes and the movement taking place in the opposition's half, in the opposition's box, caging them in. 39%, and the quality of that possession way outweighs the 61% of ball position Real Madrid had, because that 61% of the ball that Madrid had them locked in their own half. Now, you can have 61% of the ball throughout the 90 minutes of the game, but if it means that you're going to be stuck in your own half, by all means, keep the ball. When we have it, we also want to be in your half with the ball, and we also want to be operating close to your goal with the ball. And I think that is the strategy that a lot of these players are bringing against Liverpool this season, and they are moving the ball in a dangerous way, and Liverpool haven't countered that. They've kind of just left it, and now are having to deal with that in a very, very uncomfortable way, a very difficult way. Having lots of ball possession, but got nothing to show for it. Lots of the movement is backtracking, and I think a lot of the opposition are making a lot more dangerous moves when they have the ball, attacking Liverpool in its own half. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Carragher's take. A very interesting take, a very real one. The question is he right, though? You can let me know in the comments. Do you agree with Carragher? Do you think that there should be a different take on this? Do you agree with my assessment about the red flags and, of course, what Liverpool can do to fix that? Let me know in the comments, and you're welcome to leave a comment on this live stream at the moment. But now I just want to go over to the transfer conversation. Lots of speculation. I really don't like the speculation when it comes to transfers and transfer rumors. But one thing I do want to, just touch on is what we do know. And so far, what we do know is that the transfer market opens on the 1st of January, runs through and closes on the 3rd of February. Now, last season, Liverpool didn't do much. They done nothing in this particular window. This season, however, I think we will see a little bit of a change. And even though Ibrahima Konate has said that he is now in talks with Liverpool about the contract, I don't think that there are many of us that have confidence in what is being said in those contract negotiations and discussions. I also don't know if it means, or at least it doesn't mean that he will stay. I don't think it means that he will stay. I don't know. I really don't know. But one thing that I know is that there are talks again of Mark Gay possibly still coming to Liverpool in this transfer window. Now, this is something that I would love to see happen. And I'll tell you why. At Liverpool at the moment, one of the things I hammer on is leadership. Leadership is a very, very needed thing at the moment at Liverpool Football Club. And the lone voice that we have is Virgil van Dijk. The captain, Andy Robertson, is so seldom used. Yeah, in the last couple of games he was used, but he's the vice captain. Now at the moment, when you've got a team who's mentally not there, you've got new players on the team that needs to be pulled into position, that needs to catch a wake up. We need every senior player's voice over there, meaningfully telling them where to be and what's expected of them. Virgil van Dijk is the only one, and I don't know if he's leading from an emotional perspective at the moment. Is he also still grieving? Is he also still having a difficult moment? But having him have to carry the captaincy alone is a challenging one. And yes, we've got Mamardashvili in goal at the moment. But is he as vocal? Is he as senior as Van Dijk and Szoboszlai and Mo Salah at the moment? And the answer to that, a blunt one, is no, he's not. We need the senior leadership of a player like Alisson Becker at the moment, who's very vocal on the field. Virgil van Dijk needs to be very vocal. Andy Robertson is never there. And so all of a sudden, you have a lack of clear authoritative voices on the field. And I don't think we can expect that from any of those players in the midfield. And we surely can't expect it from Mo Salah at the moment. I just don't think we are seeing that vocality that we need over there. What we definitely do or would appreciate is a player like a Mark Gay coming in, who was captain or currently is captain out there at Crystal Palace, who knows what it means and what the importance is of being vocal on the field, pulling your players in directions that you want them, telling players to catch a wake up, telling players to be smarter, sharper, faster on the ball. And I think Virgil van Dijk needs that as well. He needs someone that can put some fire under him and also fire under the rest of the squad, someone who's disciplined in defense as well, and a player who already operates on that senior level. If we get that into this Liverpool team, then most definitely it will make the world of difference on the field. And that is what I think Liverpool are going to go for in this January transfer window. Apart from that, we have Carragher, we've got Frimpong. We don't need to look for, other fullbacks. We've got our midfield sorted. We don't need any midfielders. We've got a fantastic front line. We don't need any more players. We need to update the tactics. We need to work on those basics, like the set pieces and all of those that were mentioned. That is what we need to get Liverpool right at the moment. Well, that is my take on all of this. And you can let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. This video will be up here for you to engage with. And if you haven't yet, make your way over to my YouTube page, Red Tactics with Neil. It is the newest one. We are looking to retire the Neil Raiters football brand, and so that YouTube channel is going to be repurposed into a shorts channel, and so we're starting off with a brand new one, Red Tactics with Neil. You can find us over there on YouTube, where we do our weekly Tactical Tuesday, where we look at all of the tactics from games played and what Liverpool can take into the next game that they are going to play. We do our match preview usually on a Friday, and then of course the Mondays we do the review. This week, of course, there is nothing in review in the international break, but we had to touch on this very, very all-important topic. Can Liverpool be fixed at the moment? The short answer to that is yes, they definitely can. Can the transfer market impact how Liverpool performs for the rest of the season? Yes, it can. But it's going to take a lot of work to get things right. But just by doing the basics, that lots of work can be easy work. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for checking this one out. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on all of this is. And I, of course, will catch you on the next one. And as always, up the Reds.